they always blamed Westminster. Even when things were devolved to them, 22 devolved areas and powers that were given to them, were becoming more engaged in politics because they hate Keir Starmer. That reform in Wales will win a lot of seats.
Let's jump into Wales then. The Labour Party has dominated Wales all my life. It's easy being in a party when you're not in power. So Labour have spent 14 years, rightly so, criticising the Tories. We would be better, we would do this, we would fix all the problems, we're amazing. And that's what every opposition does. They're now in power. And it's been the fastest, deepest fall I've ever seen. There was no honeymoon period for Labour. It lasted 4 minutes, the honeymoon period. They've basically changed their opinion on everything they campaigned for. We've now got evidence that they basically, all politicians lie. I'm not saying this is just a Labour problem, but I've never seen a government lie so much and get discovered and break the promises as quick as this government. How are Labour doing in Wales now? It's all fallen apart on a national level. Are they going to get spanked at the Welsh elections next year?
Yeah. Well, going on that, I put a quote of the week. There's more rats in Parliament than there is in Birmingham at the moment. But suffice to say, I think when Welsh Labour, we've had devolution for over 2 decades, and it's failed completely. It's a failed project. I was anti-devolution myself personally. It not because it doesn't work, it's because of who was in power. And Welsh Labour, Eluned Morgan, now the First Minister, prior to that, Mark Drakeford, of course, my good friend down there, the Emperor, I call him. They always blamed Westminster. Even when things were devolved to them, 22 devolved areas and powers that were given to them, and the Barnett formula, the way they work out how much money Wales is going to get, they always failed. When it came to public services, education, we were lowest on the PISA chart, which is how they measure the scores. The level of child poverty. It's just immense. It's probably the largest in the country of the whole of the islands we live on. But Welsh Labour always blamed Westminster because of the Conservatives. Now the Labour Party came into power, and all of a sudden, Eluned Morgan's under pressure now because she can't blame Westminster anymore. So it's a case of, all right, okay, they're not going to give us what we wanted. So how do we then, project to people that the Labour Party are the party of the people? Because we said things would be different. Well, I can tell you, Nick, here on the ground here in Wales, nothing is different. If anything, it's getting worse. And I think, as you alluded to, Keir Starmer, I've never, ever in my lifetime of being involved in politics, I can't think of a worse prime minister we have ever had, who has blatantly lied to the British people time after time. I've gone through their manifesto. I've looked at what he said and what he promised they were going to do. And he has literally lied and broken almost every single one of those pledges that he made to the British people. And it's a shame in this country. I know how our democracy works, but I think that politicians should be held to account. And if they lie to the people and they're elected based on those lies, there should be an automatic election, general election, by-election, call it what you want. Put it back to the people, because that's a loss of trust. And, we give our consent to them. We give it to them. We voted for them to allow them to make these decisions. And if you look the way that Keir Starmer is doing what he's doing now, he's breaking all these promises. We can talk about the farmers. We can talk about the pensioners. We can talk about the WASPy women. There's some stuff that's going on there at the moment. So many things. They're talking about stopping the boats. They ain't stopped no boats. And if anything, it's increased under his watch. And we've seen that massively. And I'm talking to people, everyday ordinary people who are not engaged in politics, Nick. It's just interesting. Who are becoming more engaged in politics because they hate Keir Starmer. Like they hate him. I was with somebody yesterday having a coffee, and we were talking about it, and they're like, I can't stand his voice. Even his voice, he just, it's just. I'm not criticizing the guy's voice, but it's just, people are just seeing the lies, constant barrage of lies, and the propaganda from media as well that we're seeing as well. And of course, more recently we've seen now the inquiry into the rape gangs, because that's what they were, not grooming gangs, they were rape and grooming gangs, being dropped. What's all that about? But thankfully, Rupert Lowe is calling for a private inquiry, and he's raised over £500,000 on a crowdfunder, which I think is phenomenal. So big thumbs up to him for doing that. And so here going back to Central Welsh elections, my thoughts are that the Conservatives here, we don't have any Conservative MPs in Wales anymore since the election. You know that, don't you? There's no Conservative MPs in Wales at all representing Westminster. You know, they got wiped out. We got obliterated, literally obliterated. But of course, we have MSs, members of the Senate, down here, the Welsh government, or Welsh Parliament, I should say. I think that the Conservatives are going to be wiped out down here, the Welsh Conservatives. They've changed leader recently from R.T. Davies to Darren Miller, who, for some strange reason, has blocked me on X. I don't really know why. Just some people, it's one of those things, isn't it? And I think they are speaking the wrong language. They're not hitting the kind of right messaging to reach people, because there's some internal battle going on there. I think a lot of the Welsh Conservative MSs, I think they should be considering, looking at who they're going to stand for, whether as an independent, because of what's happening at the moment, or whether they move to reform. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, I should imagine, discussions going on. But I think the Welsh Conservatives will be obliterated. I have no crystal ball in front of me, but I've got a funny sneaking suspicion that reform in Wales will win a lot of seats under our PR system, proportional representation as well, of course. Looking at the vote share as well, looking at the polling at the moment, and we're only a year out, I think the May local elections will give us an indication, as to where we're going. That's going to be a massive part of it. We don't have them here in Wales. We haven't got local elections in May. I think it's just in England and elsewhere, but not here in Wales. But I think that will give an indication to people of where reform are, because the polls are the polls. We always use them to our own advantage, as you know. When they don't speak good of us, we don't use them. When they speak well of us, we use them. But I do think that reform are a real threat to Welsh Labour, and I've seen Labour attacking reform now consistently over the last few weeks. It's kind of become part of their target on social media platforms. I think that's deliberate. It's orchestrated, because they know the biggest threat to them right now is not the Conservatives, it's not the Lib Dems, the Greens. Well, forget them. Look, they're irrelevant. It is the Reform Party, and I think if you look at the rallies that Nigel is holding across the country, he's out and about there. He's really making headlines. I think that not everyone agrees with what's happened with the change in the party, and I understand that. So I'm looking from the outside in, and I'm predicting that they're going to win a lot of seats. I can see it being between Plaid Cymru and Reform Party in Wales. I mean, I think Welsh Labour, because we get national news more than we do local news. Local news is like 10 minutes at the end of the main news. Welsh news, this come on, after the show. I really think with people looking at Labour now, they might think to themselves, what have we done voting for these people? What have we done? And a lot of the older people are the voters, because they have traditionally been the voters. And they've lost a lot of them because of the winter fuel allowance and the cuts and everything else. And so I really think that we're going to see a real shift and a massive change here in Wales. It's happened before. We had Brexit Party members in the Senate. I worked for one of them, Mark Reckless. I was a caseworker working for him in the Parliament down there. So I do think there's going to be a huge change. When you look at the general election that we had back in July, I mean, some of the seats that were contested here in Wales, I mean, they were so close. I mean, you're talking like so close. I mean, in Llanelli, where I live, Gareth Beer, for example, who stood as an MP, I mean, he was so close. I mean, it really put, the scares up Neil Griffiths, who's the Welsh Labour MP for my constituency where I'm situated. So I think Labour is scared, and they should be. And I think Reform are on the rise. And I honestly, genuinely believe, regardless of what I think about their structure, their administration and everything else, and certain personalities saying certain things, I do think that they are going to do exceedingly well in the May elections, local, and the Welsh elections, Scottish elections. And I think if they can keep that momentum going into a general election, we might witness something historically that we have never, ever seen before. A small insurgent party, or some of them target them as a protest party, making real infiltration into government. And who knows, maybe Nigel Farage could become the first Prime Minister from a right-wing perspective and having the keys to number 10.